These reporters got owned in epic fashion. These days, many reporters are focusing on pushing woke agendas instead of doing their actual jobs, leading to bias, sloppy journalism. The good thing is we're seeing more pushback during interviews, catching them off guard and leaving them speechless. And today we'll cover some of those legendary moments. But before I go on with the video, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more discussions just like this.
What's your most important issue?
The economy, getting the interest rates down, getting it where we can afford to live in America. Right now, it's too expensive.
Okay, now let me maybe ask like a slightly impolite question. But, you know, if you can afford a boat, you're not hurting so bad, right? Because a boat costs a lot of money and it's a lot of upkeep.
Listen, nobody gave me. I earned everything that I've got. I'm retired military, retired power plant, and I am successful and retired and with boats, jet skis, because I did it right. And everybody has that chance. Whether they choose or not, that's up to them.
Listen, lady, if Elon Musk, who happens to be the richest man in the United States, is concerned about the economy, this man absolutely has the right to be worried about it too. She made it seem like he owns a tropical private island or something. He's probably in the upper middle class, and even Vox made an article titled "Upper Middle Class Gets a Reality Check." According to Pew Research Center, improving the economy is the top priority for 73% of voters. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone because in the past few years, we've seen prices rise, wages struggle to keep up, and uncertainty about the future of jobs in industries ranging from tech to manufacturing. Inflation has hit hard and many families are finding it difficult to stretch their paychecks to cover basic necessities like food, housing, and healthcare. But seeing that brutal answer, she was quick to backtrack and try to clarify her position.
I would never try to take anything away from you in that way. But what I'm asking is, groceries are probably a smaller part of your budget than, say, you know, someone who's like a little worse off. I think it's interesting that people who are a little bit more comfortable are still so concerned about the economy. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because I want my money to go further. I want inflation to go down. I want interest rates to go back down. I want all that. But that covers everybody in the economy. Not just me, not just the poor, not just the rich. It covers everybody.
Now, something I've heard from some people, tell me if this applies to you, is like they're worried their kids aren't able to afford a house or a car.
No. I trained my kids and taught my kids properly. They have great educations, and they're both successful in their careers. Actually, they're doing better than me.
I know this is CNN, but come on, it's like she's been in coma for the past 4 years and just woke up from it. She's clearly trying to downplay how bad the state of the economy really is. While average Americans are feeling the sting of rising inflation, stagnant wages, and skyrocketing costs of living, some on the far left seem more focused on pushing certain narratives that divert attention from these pressing economic realities. That's not to say social issues don't matter, they absolutely do, but I have a growing sense that economic hardships are being minimized in favor of these ideological battles. Next up, we have a throwback to when Jordan Peterson was interviewed by the Australian comedian Tim Ballard, and in classic Peterson fashion, he got shut down by the facts.
What about looking back over history? You've written the idea that women were oppressed throughout history is an appalling theory. They haven't had a great time though, have they?
Who has had a great time in history?
But men have had less of a
Really, have
time.
they? Have they? By what standard? By what standard?
Well, I'm just saying if you're a woman...
How about war?
But it took longer for women to get the vote, and women belong to their husbands, and in this country, one woman dies every week from domestic violence, a man dies like once a month, I believe, from that same cause. Like, aren't there some clearly obvious things that women are victim of as a result of their gender?
There are inequalities in the catastrophes that the genders are subject to.
The idea that women have always had it worse than men throughout history is a narrative that's oversimplified. Apart from the obvious argument of men having zero choice on being sent to war, they have historically taken on the most dangerous jobs, whether in coal mines, steel mills, or on fishing boats, with high rates of injury and death. By the way, I've noticed you haven't subscribed to the channel, so what are you waiting for? While the narrative often focuses on the limitations placed on women, men were also locked into rigid societal roles that required them to be protectors and providers, regardless of the personal toll. Watch how Peterson explains it in depth next.
Look, first of all, there's some things we got to get straight. History's a rough business. Everybody had it rough. In 1895, the typical Westerner lived on less than $1 a day, which is absolute poverty by today's standards, right? And so people were brutally poor for almost the entire course of human history. It was rough. You say, well, did men or women have it worse? It's like, well, you know, that's a complicated question. But one of the things you can say is everybody had it pretty damn bad. And apart from the pure catastrophe of existence that was shared, say, more or less equally between the genders, like most of the time, men and women helped each other. Like women raised their sons, husbands protected their families. I'm not buying this whole, the sexes have been at each other's throats the entire history of mankind. It's like, no, wrong.
That's right. When discussing issues of sex, it's important to recognize that both men and women have faced their own unique challenges throughout history without getting swept up in the oversimplified woke narrative of the movement. For instance, while women have fought for equal rights, men have been burdened by the expectation to be the primary providers. This narrative pits men and women against each other, creating division that just isn't helpful. If we take a step back from the divisive mindset, it becomes clear that both men and women have valuable stories shaped by their circumstances. But there's another layer that many people fail to realize, and Peterson sums it up here perfectly.
And then one level deeper than that, I don't like the whole game. The whole game is, let's divide people into groups and contrast their oppression. It's like, fine, play it, see what happens. You're not going to like it. We did that in the 20th century, right? The right-wingers played it in Nazi Germany, and the left-wingers played it throughout the communist world. And all that happened was that we stacked up the corpses, millions of them. It's not a good game. The equity game, that's a bad game.
The entire woke ideology is built on the idea that society is inherently structured by oppression and that people must be categorized by race, gender, sexuality, and other markers to understand who has power and who doesn't. That's why it all boils down to oppressors versus the oppressed, where certain groups are framed as having systematic power and others are perpetual victims. And in the end, this approach does little to solve the real issue facing society and instead deepens the divides between who might otherwise find common ground. Up next, we have the Celtics head coach silencing a woke reporter in just one sentence.
Hey, Joe, Ben School of Yahoo Sports. For the first time since 1975, this is the NBA Finals where you have two black head coaches. Given the plight sometimes of black head coaches in the NBA, do you think this is a significant moment? Do you take pride in this? How do you view this, or do you not see it at all?
I wonder how many of those have been Christian coaches.
The silence speaks volumes. What's even more funny is that since the reporter didn't get the response he was expecting, he went on and published a full-length article on Yahoo Sports bashing Missoula because he chose not to engage with his race-baiting question. And that's the thing with these woke reporters: when someone comes in with a different perspective or refuses to engage with their questions, they try to silence them, because how dare they go against the popular narrative? It's like they're not even prepared to handle an alternate viewpoint or a reasoned argument. Instead of going for meaningful discussion, they resort to character attacks when someone dares to think for themselves. It's a sign that they don't actually want conversation, they just want compliance with their agenda. And the two final clips I'm about to show are from the legendary interview between Don Lemon and Elon Musk, and I'm not calling it legendary because of how great Lemon's quotes were.
Do you know what the term woke actually means?
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean? It's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course. But trying to blame everything trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm...
Yeah, race or, gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and, yeah.
You think that's unfair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on.
This was such a wasted opportunity by Don, because landing an interview with one of the greatest innovators is a lifetime opportunity for any journalist. But instead of asking him about the future of space exploration or any other projects Musk is working on, he made sure the conversation focused only on his narratives. Just compare this with any other podcast that Elon went on and you'll see the difference. It was an attempt by Don to push a political agenda over engaging with him on topics that matter to the average viewer. He even went on as far as accusing Elon as being inherently privileged because of him being white. Watch how it unfolded next.
If you look at history, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Yes. Well, not everyone was a slave.
No, everyone was a slave.
Okay, but
we are all descended from slaves.
Yeah.
Well, all of us.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
Right.
But what future do we want? Is this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual. I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't.
Well, if we keep talking about it nonstop, it will never go away.
It's no question that slavery was and still is a grim part of human history, and it was not unique to one group or time period. In fact, slave is literally a Slavic word who were white slaves, but it spanned continents and cultures from the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans to the African, Middle Eastern, and even European civilization. It's a fact that people from all ethnicities at one point or another were subjected to this cruel practice, but as Elon pointed out, it's time to move on from this painful past and focus on building a better future and, frankly, freeing people who are enslaved today. You see, constantly fixating on the injustices of the past prevents progress, especially since there has been a lot of progress made in the Western world regarding the issue. I think that we live in a time where people are freer than ever, and the focus should be on maintaining that freedom for everyone. What are your thoughts on this? Let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below, and if you want your friends to be as informed as you, make sure to share the video with them.